Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Story. Very happy to have Rishi Sharma here. Rishi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, there's lots to tell. 46 years old, you can imagine how long that
stories
goes.
And stories, right?
I'll just give you a quick summary. I live in Victoria, which is on the territory of the Lekwungen and Songhees First Nation, which I've become accustomed to saying now because I do a lot of presentations in my work.
Right.
Which is with the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Training. And I just finished a outreach and engagement process with private training institutions in British Columbia. And so I go and I'm actually looking at regulations. I'm looking at fee changes. I'm looking at the future of private training. So that's what I'm doing for work right now. I'm a director in that area. Moving back to intergovernmental relations, Indigenous relations, and some more corporate business planning over in, again, the Ministry of Advanced Education. I have a beautiful wife, 3 daughters, if I can remember, 12, 10, and 6. One's turning 7 in a couple weeks. Yeah. Born in Port Alberni, up island, Northern Ireland, and then we moved down to Victoria when I was around 4 or 5. Lived in Saanich, which is a district in Victoria, for most of my life, pretty much.
So the island is one of the most beautiful places in our country. Tell us a little bit. We haven't had anyone from the island yet. Tell us a bit about how that is such a special part of Canada and a special part of British Columbia.
It's amazing to be living on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. Oceans all around you, mountains, lakes, parks, great schools, great diversity, great restaurants. As the capital, right? We've got our legislature. You go downtown, you see the legislative building right there. And I was lucky enough. We grew up very humble beginnings. My parents came from India in the 70s. My dad was in Squamish with my uncle, but they decided to move to Port Alberni and then Victoria. We lived in lived in the area that wasn't really close to the ocean, but we were lucky enough. My dad, moved us closer to the ocean. So if you can imagine, second generation kid moving into this beautiful area. I walked 15 minutes and I'm at the ocean side. And so I got to play around beaches. A couple of buddies had pools. I'm in heaven. Yeah. And so this has been just a blessing to be able to live here. It's 26 degrees. It was yesterday. I'm camping in the backyard with the kids, get on the motorcycle, go for a ride down the coastline. My daughter woke up and I said, because it's been really warm, I said, why don't you go outside for a second and just get some fresh air? She walks back in and she goes, Dad, it's like Hawaii out there. It's like a Hawaii morning.
Yeah.
I was like, beautiful. Yeah. Just save me a bunch of money. We'll just stay home.
We don't even have to go there. Yeah.
So this past month and a half, I've actually swam in the ocean at a beach here called Cordova Bay Beach 3 times already. I've been swimming already with the kids, like in the ocean. So it's fantastic. You sit on the beach.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
They say that British Columbia, like you guys have it the best of anyone in the country because you're the most temperate climate where you are of anywhere in our country, I would say. Yeah,
I think yes. I've lived in Vancouver for a little while, and it wasn't the temperature that made me move back. It was just the traffic and the stress of just living there, right? And just the anxiety of getting to work. It took me an hour and 15 minutes to get to work. 15 minutes to get back. Yeah. And so now I'm here. It'll take maybe 20 minutes, and I'm right downtown. And I would call it kind of semi-metropolitan area. Like
for sure, and a very like you said, there's a lot of diversity, and it's very much that capital city vibe with the metropolitan. Having the government industry there helps a lot with stabilizing economically too.
Yeah, that's true. Even going through a pandemic, for example, like government is an essential service that continues to stay open. So we didn't feel a lot of the hardship. Mind you, the tourism industry, the cruise ship industry, the tourism industry, the taxi industry, decimated. Buddy of mine had a restaurant. He's lost 70% of his revenue. Yeah. Just struggling to get through. And we weren't even allowed to go in and eat or spend our money there. So it's getting better now, but But on the government side, yeah, a lot of people were very safe and lucky and to have work.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of hospitals, great infrastructure. As much there are some factors that that kind of bring down the reputation a little bit. Like when we talk about diversity, it is diversity, but there's a lot of there's a lot of how to say it politely. There could be a little discrimination in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I want to get into that. Because you actually became a national news story around this when you were running. Was it the last election or was it one before that?
Last election.
Yeah, the last election. So I want to get to that, but before we go into that, I want to hear what you love about our country. What is it about Canada that just makes you so proud to be Canadian?
Freedom, the ability to move ahead, the ability to strive, to be yourself, the friendships, just the nature of the opportunity. My dad took me to India. Wow, I actually almost got emotional right there when you asked me that question. That's messed up. My dad took me
I don't
to
think
India.
It's messed up at all to love Canada.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think that's awesome.
So, that's a powerful question to me. So, my dad took me to India. I think I was going into grade 11, grade 10, going into grade 11. And was it 91? So we went there and he goes, I want you to travel and live the way I lived. And he was upper class. In his mind, he was upper class, but we're going third world country. We're traveling third world travels. People, there's urine running down trains. I get off the plane. There's people crapping on the sidewalks. There's a man with no arms and no legs on a board shuffling himself down the street asking for money, and people ignoring him because they don't want to give up their money. Kids just flying at me, asking me for dollars. And then you see these massive, beautiful homes and mansions where there's just so much wealth. And here I am in this little home in the courtyard, and I'm sweeping. And my dad's friend comes over, and I'm sick as hell, right? I drank the water, so I lost 20 pounds. Stupid. It was August, first of all. Yeah. So I've just lost 20 pounds. And I'm sitting there in, boxer shorts and a tank top, which we would wear around here, and I started sweeping. Well, first of all, I get screamed at for sweeping because I'm a higher caste Hindu. I'm possibly picking up a broom, so I'm getting yelled at. Then this guy comes in and he goes, "Who's the new servant?" My dad. My dad's like, "Holy shit, that's my son." It's just such a different dynamic. When I came home, we flew in. I got back to Victoria, and I remember sitting outside my home, Hillcrest Elementary. I lived across the street from Hillcrest Elementary. Actually, I lived across the street from Steve Nash. Steve Nash and I, we grew up in the same street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we played ball together. His parents babysat my daughters. I came home and I literally kissed the grass.
Right.
Home. Because I'm like, how can they treat their people so poorly and we treat our people so well? And now I realize why. When I was young growing up, I was in a one bathroom home, maybe 3 or 4 bedrooms, but my dad lived there with my mom. There's me, my older sister, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, and grandparents.
Wow! All in one home.
Yeah, we just dealt with it. To me, it was no big deal, right? That's just family. You're scrambling for food, whatever it might be, that type of thing, right? Kids always eat last, elders first.
Yep.
And so it was. It was just so interesting to see the difference, and then just knowing that you can actually succeed and strive in Canada. It's still like, look at me, like I was like second generation,
Yeah.
Worked up. I was in the legislature, ended up working in the legislature as assistant legislative assistant, fought my way up to be, we became government, fought my way into a minister's office, chief of staff to a minister. It was in the premier's office, advising the premier of the province. When my dad and them just came here.
What other country in the world could you just come here and be working for the premier? Like,
you couldn't, because we would be considered lower caste in Canada.
Right.
Because we were immigrants, right? Underrepresented, undesirables, which we would be considered in India. If you're considered undesirable, you know your place.
Right.
Don't ever think that you'll be working for the prime minister because you're a lower caste. So it's just so different. And so here I am learning. My family's telling me how great India is, and then I went to see it, and then I really realized how fantastic Canada is. and to be able to be here and live and strive and get ahead. And we've done well. Like the family's done
Yeah.
well.
So tell us a little bit about, because I love, actually, our aunt and uncle live with my grandma, their daughter and son-in-law, and soon to be 4 kids in one home. And it's not very common for that to, be, our family's been here for 300 years. And that's not
Yeah.
very common for, like, as Stephen Harper once said, old stock Canadians. But I think it's one of the most beautiful things. Do you want to share a little bit about what that experience brings in terms of the enrichment of your life, living with that many family members, and why that way of living, which may seem foreign to some Canadians, is so enriching?
It's a lot of love and a lot of hate.
Right.
You learn you learn politics at a very young age, because you've got the in-laws with your mom, and then my mom's sister's coming over and talking crap about my dad's family, and then my uncle's talking about. So you're in your own little political environment,
Right.
and as much as they bicker, that family, when they came together, we would have any type of a wedding reception or a birthday party. The house was packed and full. Like, I have the best relationships with my cousins. There's about 22 of them.
Right.
And we are so close. We'll call them up. We've got a WhatsApp chat now. We're always sticking together. And you just know there's comfort and there's protection. And you feel it's a sense of power.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
having this family around.
You have a tribe.
Like, you exactly. And it's so good when you're down, when you may be depressed, when you may be out, like, your family will be there to support you. And they're right there. Like, my aunt, for example, we would come home, and I didn't have that many friends back then. As I said, I was different. I was brown. I had a lot of, I had some Indigenous buddies that we would hang out with, but I wasn't very comfortable going to mainstream or white people houses, because I didn't really know how to eat, for example.
Right.
I'd come home and I wasn't alone. My aunt was there. My uncle was there. He'd take me to an arcade, or my aunt and I would watch a movie. Like, there was always, in summers, my parents would send me to Port Alberni to go live with my aunt and my grandparents and my grandma. And it's just that, it's like real, true family love.
Yeah.
And having that opportunity, like, I'm glad, like, so my wife and I, we developed homes. We lived in a home across the street from an 18th Fairway over on Bear Mountain, 6,000 square feet, 2 basement suites. And it was just my wife and I and my dog. We had our first kid. There's 3 of us in there. And I was like, what are we doing here? It's huge.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not like I was far away from my parents or her parents. We were only maybe 50 minutes, but we're like, no, it's too far. Went in, got a little bit closer, bought a smaller house. Now I've got my wife, my 3 daughters, myself, my friend who I've known for 35 years, Brandon. He came into a bit of tough time. He goes, hey man, I need a place to live. Let's look. I go, what do you mean? Let's look. You stay with me.
Right.
What do you mean?
Right.
So there's Brandon and his son. We're all in this little 2,200 square foot house right now. Nice big backyard.
And it's probably just full of love.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? He comes up, we hang out. The guy's awesome. His kids playing around. And for me, it's normal, right? My wife, not so much.
Right.
She never really had that living with all the family. But for me, and then people were coming over whenever they're allowed to, or with COVID restrictions, we'll go outside.
Yeah.
But the house is always full. Mom and dad are coming in and out. So I think if people have the opportunity to, like, it's difficult. It's not easy. But I think the pain, the love that you'll generate, and the optimism and the strength and the support is better than just that little bickering or who's waiting for the washroom and that type of shit, right?
Right. Yeah. Those things don't matter in terms of the other things you described, like the feeling of a bond. I loved what you said there, where you're like, I was never alone. Right.
Yeah.
You would come home, and it didn't matter that maybe you felt different because you could come home and be part of that unit, and adults were like paying attention to you and wanted to spend time with you and stuff. Right. Like, that's family. Like, that's family taking care of one another.
I'll note that. Well, that's a loaded statement. Parents are there to take care of you. Well, they're there to take care of the family as a whole.
Right.
As in, let's work, let's get money, let's succeed. If the kids got to go play outside by themselves, or they can't get lunch or a sandwich like that, don't worry about it. They're after this bigger goal, and we've now hit it, right? So now I get to stay home, and I make breakfast for my daughters every day. I drop them off at school. My wife and I, we wake them up. Either I pick them up or my wife picks them up. I'm coaching my daughter's basketball team on Fridays, coach for soccer. Like my parents couldn't do that because they were trying to succeed to get to this place where they thought they needed to be. And I'm very lucky because now, I've built a number of homes, townhouses. I've got a job in the government. I'm comfortable, so I can do that. Like now we're at a place where we're very lucky, but we still have family around. So it's totally weird because I have. It's strange to see all this time. Like I see my kids growing up, and my parents are like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like we're supposed to be there and coach and stuff." So it's a bit awkward. For my parents. I think they feel a little bit off because they really didn't have that opportunity. And my mom and dad will mention it often, say, "Well, we were trying to do this and we were trying to do that. That's why we weren't at all your games, and that's why we sent you off to your grandpa's house in the summer." House. Huh. It's all minor, man. Like again, having that true family love around you, it's pretty powerful.
Oh, absolutely. So that family love and that foundation that you had, I love the story of the rise in politics. I mean, I guess it's personal to me because I came from a town of like 14 houses. There was 14 houses, and then by 23, I was flying around on the Prime Minister's jet with him, advising him. So I want to go into a bit of this. Tell me your political story. Tell me how you got involved, kind of what led you into it, how you ended up in the Premier's office, like. Let's dig into this the political story. We don't have enough political stories sometimes on this podcast.
Yeah. You gotta be cautious what you say too, right?
Oh, true.
So I growing up in Victoria, I moved to Vancouver for a bit to go to school. I was an iron worker. I was a tradesperson. So in Vancouver, I was an iron worker. Worked in a couple of mills, and then I realized that I needed to come home to Victoria because Vancouver was not a safe place for Indo-Canadian males at that time. It's just as bad as you may be hearing about now,
right?
With the constant deaths and all that type of thing. So if you're Indo-Canadian, you're going to be recruited, and it was just a tumultuous, a dangerous world, and I was getting pulled into it. And someone said, "You need to go home, otherwise you're not going to be around much longer." Mm-hmm. So I came back to Victoria with my parents being very upset. "Oh, why'd you fail? Why didn't you go to school?" Stuff like that. I was like, "Well, I just kind of wanted to live." So I'm coming home.
Yep.
So I came home, and I was introduced to someone involved in the opposition party, the BC Liberal Party. They were in opposition at that time, and they were aware of some of the stuff I did before I left. I used to host dances for youth. Because we didn't want our friends going into bars and stuff like that where they didn't belong, underage drinking and all that. So I would host these dances, and there'd be hundreds of kids, friends, and my cousins would bounce for me. So it was a very safe environment. We'd have cops come in, look around, okay, everything's cool. And so I actually held one in a club when I got back with the same people.
Oh, nice.
So here's 300 plus 400. I'm on stage making a couple comments. Some guy walks in. And he's like, "Who the hell's that guy?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, he's the guy who's hosting the event." I had a chat with him. He goes, "Well, we could use someone like you in politics." I said, "Well, okay, I was working retail or something like that, just getting my stuff together." And so I was offered an opportunity to come actually interview for a job as an legislative assistant. This is in 1999.
Right.
So here I am putting the shirt and tie on after working trades for a while. And the reason that they picked me was because of the organization and just my ability to obviously deal with people, which you would call now stakeholder relations or stakeholder engagement, and my tech skills. Because there was computers, and it was just the burgeoning computer era, where you could go and search things online. and so I went there, and they're like, "Well, okay, we were really interested in your resume and how you said you know how to search online." I was like,
right. That's so funny to hear. You know how to Google.
You know how to Google.
So there's six people around the table, all women, all administrators, and one senior manager, and they were just so impressed with my ability to find how I could find something online. I had one friend. And we would go to his attic, and we would go on his computer, and we'd mess around, and we'd play games, and we would search stuff online. That was my training.
Right.
Online
That was it. And they were so impressed by it.
So impressed with it. So, and I guess because I worked a lot of retail, and I've been working since I've been 14 years old. So I had a lot of experience. And so they appreciated the experience, and probably someone put in a good word for me. Hey, this guy had a 300, 400 person event.
Yes,
Hire
right.
him. Not nepotism, but that's how it goes.
Well, it's like it's recognizing talent and saying we need that talent involved in our team or we're never going to win.
Exactly. Particularly because we were going towards an election in 2001.
Yes.
So they gave me a shot, and I don't think they saw anyone work harder in their lives. So I worked for about a year, less than a year, and then the chief of staff came up to me. Chief of staff to the opposition leader came up to me and said, "Look, we have to let you go." And I was like, "I've been working my ass off. Like, I don't understand. Like, is it writing? Like, and learn more of that?" Like, he goes, "No. One of the MLA's cousins, kid, needs a job. That's just how politics goes, son."
Wow.
God, I was devastated.
Wow.
Just devastated. So, and I said, "Look, I'll work for free, man." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "I'll work for free. Like, this is where I need to be." And then so he left, called me back in about 3 weeks. He goes, "Rish, we found a spot for you. Please come back."
Wow.
And then I worked my way up to working with one of the most highest profile politicians ever, Christy Clark.
Yep.
He was an MLA at that time. A guy named Barry Penner, who was one of the longest serving environment ministers, ended up being the longest serving environment ministers, and some senior MLAs, Doug Simons, Kevin Kruger, and so they taught me so much. And we won the next election because of our organization skills, and we moved. And so the chief of staff at that time, he brought me in. He goes, "I don't know if you have the right skills on your resume." He goes, "But I've seen you work for a couple of years. I want to make an executive assistant." I became, I think, the youngest executive assistant in the building, working for the most senior and eldest minister in the building. my portfolio. It was hilarious. But here's this brown kid,
right?
Just a trades guy coming out of Vancouver 2 years out. Now I'm sitting in the minister's office, no staff, just the minister and myself. And it was the minister of state for intermediate, long-term, and home care.
Oh, wow. That's one of the most intense portfolios.
It was brutal. And I got Minister Whitchard, who was the oldest minister at that time.
Right.
So here's this older white lady from North Vancouver. Here's me from Port Alberni or Victoria.
Right.
And we got along swimmingly, man. And see how I use the word swimmingly? Because she taught me that word, swimmingly. Nice. That's not anything I learned when I was growing up.
No,
my mom and dad never said that's swimmingly.
So for people who don't know, executive assistant is essentially chief of staff to a minister in the BC context. Yes,
absolutely. And at that time, well, there was a ministerial assistant, but at that time we didn't have one, so I just kind of ran. Then so from there, just kind of moved up to another portfolio. I went into, probably the most important one was climate action, the Minister of State for Climate Action.
And that would have been during when Campbell was bringing in the carbon tax, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So that's not true. I was actually media monitoring in his office first.
Oh.
So I built a niche. My hobby is going through news stories and current affairs because I would learn that way. I would go into the library day after day, sit in the legislative library and just read, because I knew I didn't have that skill compared to some of these other colleagues that have their master's or PhD or whatever. And so I really got the skill of grasping the media, going through it quickly, summarizing it, setting it up. So I just started doing that for staff. And then I got offered a job in the communications arm of government because they were creating a media monitoring shop.
Right.
And they said, "Is this something you'd like to do?" I said, "Oh, sure, I'll give it a shot," because I had this niche that I had built of just sending up media.
Right.
And so I built that shop from ground up. We had 7 TVs. We had 6 radios. I had about 6 staff. And in that one room, 500 square foot room, maybe, everything was on all the time, and we would transcribe stories off the radio and TV and send it over to.
Wow, in real time. So you're like one of the first issues management shops in Canada at that level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And then so from there, we went into another election, and then after that, the premier walked into our office and said, "Who's doing this? Who's leading it? I want to thank you." He dropped off a big bucket of double bubble for us, and we handed the double bubble up, and then someone said, "Look, the premier wants you to do this during the election." I said, then what if we lose?
Yeah,
But that's the
right.
risk you take, right?
Yeah, that's politics, right? Yep.
So I took that chance. So it was a leadership. I was on the leadership team right downtown Vancouver. I built a smaller, same media monitoring shop. Had one colleague with me, and we did it for the leader in the central campaign office, and we won. And I was like, well, this is fantastic. So then when we came back, I was asked to create the same shop in the West Annex, which is directly in the Premier's office. So here's the Premier's office, and I was right below. And we would grind, and I was up at 5:30 summarizing stuff by 7 a.m., all the mainstream media, then doing regionals by 8, all day long monitoring. We would watch the 11 o'clock news just to make sure we wouldn't miss anything, and that was my life.
Right.
Just constantly. It's pretty much 24 hours politics. So when people, I don't think people understand. Well, you would.
Yeah.
It's difficult to understand the amount of time and passion and loyalty and effort you put into those types of jobs.
I like to say that it's like this country's politics is run on the lifeblood of the youth who sacrifice themselves on the altar of the ambitious.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
yeah, and they'll use you till they can't anymore.
They'll bleed you dry. There's some good ones, but it's not about you. You're serving a cause, right?
It's for the better good.
Yeah. And you have to believe that what you're doing is for the greater good, or when you're doing a job like that. Because I was saying to Zach the other day, I'm like, I once calculated how much money I was making per hour in the Prime Minister's office, and it was like $4.50 or something. Like, it was a pathetically small number.
Yeah, I got down to $10 an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't make those calculations with jobs like that because it's not about the money. Frankly, it's like you said, it's about the passion.
It is, and it's not. And I would go back and do it. Well, I have 3 daughters. When they get old enough, if there was an opportunity to go back and be a chief of staff, I'd probably do it again. Yeah. Or an elected member. Sure, that's obvious. I guess that's why I tried.
Well, yeah, let's go into that, right? Like, so tell us about going from the staff, because this is actually a fairly common trajectory, but it's not something that's talked about a lot. Going in from and I think it's something that, like you said, you didn't get like the formal education or whatever, but like you got a better education in politics than anyone's ever going to get in university by following the media. For like, you poured yourself into it. You know more. I always say this to academics. I'm like, you could write all the books you want about this, but you have no idea how it works, right? Like,
spend 2 days in my shoes in a difficult minister's office, and you'll be crushed. You won't even know where to start. You're the CEO, and you're managing so many different portfolios and files. Like, I would have daily lists of every single day of the things I needed to get done every day. I would have schedules that were 5-minute intervals, and have it just so organized. And then, and so that, I guess, like, for example, the climate action file that we had to take care of. It wasn't just, hey, let's go introduce a carbon tax.
No.
First of all, there's politics within your party that you need to ensure that everyone's on side, so you get a vote of confidence. You have interjurisdictional conversations. You got to meet with Arnold Schwarzenegger, for heaven's sakes, to get him on side, because he was the champion at that time down in California.
Yep.
You're managing all of this, trying to help out. And so it's such a difficult world. The legislative side, the issues management side, trying to be reactive. Then on that, there's the partisanship too that you've got to continue. Continue on the politics while you're trying to do the bureaucratic.
You got to keep convincing people that you're the good guys and that you're fighting the bad guys.
If you wholeheartedly believe what you're doing is right for the people you're serving, you will never go wrong.
Yeah.
And I always thought in my mind, it's what's best for British Columbians as a whole. And we didn't go wrong. And that's I continued to this day. And then I went into the bureaucracy, because I had my 3rd child. So I talked to one of the deputy ministers. I got a secondment into the bureaucracy. And that was a completely different world.
Oh, yeah.
That transition was very, very difficult. You're so busy as a chief of staff with all of this material, editing, introducing, managing, but yet you're not really creating. So here I am now in the bureaucracy. I'm writing the policy documents. I'm writing the briefing notes. And I was just like, wow, this is where it all comes from. And so I've had now 5 years of that experience. Like, I'm drafting a report right now on private training in British Columbia. And I'm on my 20th page now, after, virtual sessions after virtual sessions, trying to get research from stakeholder engagement, and that's real work, and that's work that I sincerely appreciate. Those bureaucrats and public servants who are grinding away, hats off to them too, man. That's not an easy job, and now I've had the opportunity and blessing to learn that.
Yeah, it's like everywhere you go, you get to learn something new, eh?
Yeah, and I think it was there. It was actually when I was in the bureaucracy where I decided to run. Actually, I didn't decide to run. There was a seat in Victoria, in Saanich, where the BC Liberals have maybe won once since its inception. And they couldn't find a candidate, so they called me, hey, you want to be the candidate? I was like, no way.
No, you're like, I've worked for politicians all my life. I don't want to run.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. And then just to lose?
Yeah.
But then I thought about it, and I thought about my family and where we came from, and what an opportunity to actually run for BC.
Yes.
Whatever party it is. And so I put my name forward, and it was the best decision I've ever made. I loved it. Having events, debating, because all of the knowledge you get from a staffer.
You can take it all in there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the debates were a breeze.
You already knew all the issues. You've been studying them for your whole adult life.
It was amazing because they were trying to find candidates on the island to go do an environmental debate with Andrew Weaver.
Yep.
And someone else. And I'm like, send me in. They're like, what do you mean? you weren't even supposed to run. They go, send me in.
Yeah, I can do this.
and it was great. And I have the utmost respect for anybody who actually puts their name forward. If you have the chance, I say do it. Municipally, provincially.
Yeah, I've run about 30 campaigns now, and I find that that's the one part I have never been able to fully understand, because unless you've been in the candidate's shoes, you don't realize well, actually, why don't you go into that? What was you most surprised by making that transition?
The ownership that you have to take and the responsibility. If you're a campaign manager, even, you feel responsible. Like my last campaign manager and strategist, awesome people. One of them is a good friend of mine, Stephen. I think he introduced me to him. He's fantastic. Don't call him a campaign manager, by the way.
I know he hates that.
He's a strategist.
Yeah.
He kept me cool, and you need those people around you with the intelligence and just the calmness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's my face on those signs.
Yes.
And so somebody wrote a bio or something and sent it off to the paper, and I hadn't even seen it.
Oh,
it was a pamphlet, and they're writing about me in this pamphlet. I'm like, why would you do that and not show it to me?
Yeah. Right.
So I think the difference is actually, honestly, just you are responsible for the things that you say, the things that you do, and the lens that's put on you is unreal.
Yeah.
Anything you may have done or I may have done in my teens, for example, I don't know, probably when I was in diapers, I'm going to have to apologize for. Sorry for crap diaper. I used to do that.
I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd learned faster.
Rishi Sharma, he's incontinent. He can't. But I was too.
Yeah.
That's an unimportant detail.
Yeah. In the quest for power, all details will be used against you.
Doesn't matter. He saw him puke on himself.
He was one. So
that's how ridiculous it's gotten.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that really kind of hit home. And I was like, gosh, I worry about my daughters. I worry about my wife. The strain on your family life is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything that I wasn't going to run this last election, but Stephen called me up and he said, I think it's a good idea.
Right.
I was like, fine. But I was very happy. I was in the bureaucracy. Life was kind of normalizing, spending time with my daughters and all that. And then I remember running, sitting at the kitchen table, two phones going, computer screen going, and I see my daughter, my six-year-old daughter, in the corner of my eye, mocking me, making fun of me like this. Oh, daddy's on phones all day long. And I was like, oh my god.
Wow.
I reverted right back to the guy who was the chief of staff who cared nothing else. I didn't care about anything else but my job. And so it was difficult to see and be that self-aware. I could literally see myself being kind of excuse my language, kind of an asshole dad.
Right.
To my kids. And so that was probably the hardest thing. And that's the difference when you're a staffer, you're campaign manager, you can take that time off.
True.
I know how busy you may think you are. You're stressing out. You're not as busy as that candidate,
yeah,
or that person running, and the stress level is completely different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Having said that, Having said that, it was great.
Speaking of which, so your candidacy kind of became a national news story because of some racist comments that were made towards you. And I want to go into that a little bit because it's not something we talk about enough, I think, as Canadians, is the lived... we talk about racism, but I want to talk about the actual events and how you were able to turn that around to kind of highlight how stupid racism is.
Yeah, it was a matter of very quick thinking. One thing we forgot to do is get the license plate of the guy who came out and was screaming at us, which I really, really wish I did. Because even when this happened, I'll explain what happened, but even when it happened, there were still people who I trusted and loved and I told the story to, they thought I made it up. Like, oh, you just did it for politics. Oh, you just did it for votes. I'm like, why in the hell did I do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're sitting there putting up signs, election signs, and again, Stephen was there, Taylor, a friend of mine, was there. Someone just happened to drive by. His name is John Jurasik, who's another good friend, Longcourt political. He just stopped by to see what we were doing. So my brother and I were there. We're putting up signs, and as we're putting them up, and we're banging away. This is about, I don't know, the 10th, 12th sign we're putting up, and I'm putting up signs myself because that I wouldn't just expect someone else to do that. I'm gonna participate in that. That's work, right?
Yeah.
And we take pictures by the signs.
Yeah, of course. You gotta have the photo op.
So this guy rolls up out of the blue and pulls up, and he's, I don't know, about 50 feet away, and just starts yelling at us. And I ignored it at first. And my brother calmly just said, "Look, you got to go away, man. Just go away. Like, let it go." And then he just starts yelling about us being Hindus and being brown. Oh, you guys are terrible. He started relating me and my brother to the Hells Angels. And I'm not saying anything about Hells Angels. It's just he was
right.
He was saying, you guys are terrible people, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
So anyways, eventually he left after yelling and screaming. His wife got out for a bit, I think, to yell at us, but then realized there's 4 men there. And we weren't afraid. Like, you're not going to bully us.
Mm-hmm.
So we stepped up a little bit closer, and then they kind of went away. But then I decided to pull out start taking a video of people's reaction. Right. And there's obviously my reaction, which is obvious. It's unfortunate. I obviously didn't appreciate it, but then I decided, hey, what about these folks who've never had this happen to them before?
Right.
Yeah. So let's get, the white people who probably haven't did this, and so haven't been through this. And so that's what we wanted to observe. So I started to observe them and their thoughts and their opinions. And wow, it was powerful. Just the impact of them not going through this, and very eloquently, but still passionate and upset. And so I think that's what, and then I faded back to my brother, because each of them said, this has never happened to me before. This has never happened to me before. Oh my God, what has happened? This has never happened before. And then I panned to my brother, and he goes, it happens to me all the time. And that was that. And I said, yeah, it does happen. It happens a lot, and we're used to it. We're used to it goes just like water off a duck's back type of thing. I think,
sorry, go ahead.
I think that was the most impactful thing when we actually sent it around. We put it on Twitter, obviously. Social media is huge in campaigns nowadays, as you know.
Massive,
got it out there. And all I said was a sad day in Saanich, where people think it's very diverse, where it absolutely is not. It's diverse by population, is not diverse by elected officials and representation, not at all. And so so I think that's what kind of hit home, and people were shocked, saddened, interested, and curious about the reaction of the white people who this had happened to. And I was glad we captured it. If you have time to watch it now, it's a pretty.
Oh yeah, no, I did watch it, and it was very good, very good. I want to go into a little bit more though. One of the things that a lot of people come on here and say is that the thing they love most about Canada is the diversity, right? It's the great different foods, the different cultures, our openness to other cultures. But there's a darker side to this. The people that are coming on here love that, but you've experienced that that's not always the case. So I want you to kind of like reflect on why you think that is. We had Senator Housakis on here, and he says he thinks that it's because fundamentally there's the difference between fear and hope, right? And a lot of politicians will use fear. Those are basically the two tools you have as a politician. Either you can provide a vision and hope, or you can scare people into voting for you. And he says the thing that people are most afraid of is things they don't understand or don't know. And that fear gets turned into hate and bitterness because it's a rejection of the unknown. But as someone who's actually, experienced this in a very public way even, why do you think this happens? And then on top of that, what can everyone do, practically speaking, not posting on social media or whatever, but what can we do to be the country that so many people have come on this podcast and say they want and that they love?
Feed the ignorance with education. The naivety that happens just to be around with any ethnic group or any mainstream group. Like, I need to learn more about the Filipino society. I need to learn more about those who are Nigerian who are now moving in to Canada and being a part of my kids' school, which I would love to do, but where do you even find the time? Some people take those immigrants coming in as whoever that senator was, as fear. Mm-hmm. And change is very, very difficult. And you're losing what you love the most. You're losing Canada when you see others coming in and taking it. There's a large East Asian population in my neighborhood. I was sitting on the board of directors for one of the residents associations, and somebody made a comment about, they're taking all of our homes. They are taking all of our homes.
Right.
And I was, holy shit. I go, and this is what I said to this all-white, older resident association. I said, hold on a second, because my suggestion was to bring someone Chinese onto the board of directors, because it would actually offer. There's a minority group, and we need to hear what their thoughts are. And then someone goes, they're taking all of our homes in this area. And then I said, hold on a second. I said, is it because they're taking their homes? Or is there something else? So we had a bit of a conversation, and then so to lighten the mood, I said, well, thank God we're not going to get another visible minority, because I love being the token one around the table. Because I don't want someone else colored around here.
No, you're like, then my uniqueness is gone here.
Exactly. Then what am I? And it just silence. And I got up and I left. And some of them came out and they started to apologize and what they said. I haven't gone back to the association. They came and they dropped off a card of apology and we want you back. But it is that fear of change. And even those who are here now who may be Indo-Canadian, or those who are now East Asian, and whatever new different immigrants may come in, they'll feel the same way.
Right.
Well, who are these people? What are they doing here? So we have to educate. And it's not just educate once; it's a constant change, right? And so you have to be flexible. You have to be nimble, and trust me, those who are of visible minorities, or whatever descent they may be, Irish or European, or whatever, they're resilient, right?
Yeah.
Don't worry.
They moved across the world to start to make a better life for themselves. They're not gonna this is one of the things that I absolutely hate, actually, is this whole idea that everyone's a victim. I'm like, have you met immigrants in this country? They're the furthest thing from victim. They did what basically no human ever does, right? Most humans are born, live, and die in the 100-kilometer radius of where they were born. Yeah. But then there's this crazy group that we call Canadians, who are like, I'm going to go make a better life for myself in the frozen tundra. I'm going to go
from Africa.
Yeah. Right.
Really, like go. I challenge you to go right now and live in even Japan, where it's even a modern society. And this is not where they were coming. When they came here to the island, it was not a modern society back then. It was all resource-based, right? White, predominantly just white, didn't know anything. Go to Japan now, try to learn the language, try to get into their society and integrate and succeed. Like it's not easy.
No.
And so, but Canada, it does really offer that opening for people to do that. And so I guess I could see why, people who were here originally, and I'm not talking Indigenous people, I'm talking about people who took the land from Indigenous people.
Right,
and then
original. Yeah.
They would get a little upset with that. And I've seen it and I've lived it. I've heard it. And like life has changed. Like the public school, remember I said I kind of lived in a humble area and then we moved to this different area. So the elementary school that I moved to, Hillcrest Elementary School, the first day I was there, I had to stand up and say the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
And
wow.
What are you, grade 5? What are you, 10?
Yeah.
10. So I said no. And the teacher was like, excuse me. There was one other brown kid in the room. And I look over to him like, hey, man, stick up for me. Because I had other colored friends where I came from. So I look at this kid and he just goes straight to the chalkboard, puts his head down. I'm like, what the hell? And so everyone else is sitting here staring at me. I said, I'm not saying it. One, because I didn't know it. So I was being embarrassed, first off. Two, it's not my Lord. And not that I have anything against it. Of course I'd say it, but that's not how, you just don't force a kid to start saying the Lord's Prayer.
No.
So I got in trouble, went home. Dad yelled at me. Mom just kept, Mom really didn't bother. She was pretty upset by the whole thing. And I've blocked out, someone asked me, what happened? Honestly, I've blocked it out completely. I know it was upsetting. I know I said no. I know I was 10 years old and I was, defining myself at that age saying, no, I'm not doing this. I know it was a bit of a pain in the ass as a kid, but I think what happened was, this is what I remember, is they just said, okay, can you just start it? And then you don't have to say the rest of it. I said, fine. So you stood up, individual would stand up and say, our Father. And then I would say, our Father, who art in heaven. And then I know it, but I would just stop saying it. And then they would continue on, because I was taught Hinduism. I was taught a Sharma. I was taught our caste system. We are better than everybody else. I was taught that in my home. So who is this person trying to tell me to pray to another God?
Right.
But I'm taught that I'm the best. So it wasn't because I felt I was a victim or anything.
No.
I was better than them.
Right.
So I'm not saying it. So, and understand this, there's a lot of us minority individuals who do feel that way, and trust it's still in their head. Yeah. And so I've had to learn to assimilate. I've had to learn to understand. I've had to learn to appreciate Christianity, Catholicism, other different religions. Vietnamese. I had tons of Vietnamese friends. I dated a Portuguese Catholic girl. Went to midnight mass many times. So I have that ability to love and understand. Does it mean that I'm changing my own beliefs? Does it mean changing who I am? No. Right. But at least I can understand and live amongst others who are different. And so I don't understand why other people can't do that. So this is my confusion, and I can only put it back to education and just being ignorant and naive. And we're not here to harm. People aren't here to harm. We're here to learn and understand. And don't think that you're learning someone's culture because you eat their food.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Learn about it.
Yeah.
There's several gods. There's Hinduism. There's several gods. I've got one tattooed on my back, and he was the protector of all other gods. So when I take my shirt off, people are like, what is that? And I have a conversation about who I am and where I come from. And people, they love it. Mm-hmm. And that's the true conversation that I want to have. Not like, hey, I went to Royal Tandoor yesterday. I had some great samosas. Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. Exactly.
Let's have a real conversation. And if it's uncomfortable, let's make that uncomfortable. And again, we're not victims, and we're resilient, and we're not usually that fragile. As far as I know, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm not that fragile. And I love those conversations. So,
man, I really appreciated this conversation. I hope that, thank you for your service to this country. Not enough people thank staffers for the insane sacrifice that they give, right? So and then putting your name on the ballot, right? And I loved what you said about coming back from India and kissing the ground and just loving this place and what it has to offer. I say to Zach often, my favorite Canadians are probably immigrants or second generation immigrants, because they know what we have here. They know how wonderful this place is compared to everywhere else in the world, and that's what we need to preserve.
Yeah, travel a bit, go see what it's like.
Yeah, you'll see what it's like, exactly.
You'll want to come back. You'll want to come back.
That was my experience. My background is touring with a band, and I've toured through it's either 26 or 27 countries. I can't remember which one it is anymore. And that journey taught me that I live in the best one.
Hands down.
It's the best one.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go.
Exactly.
And you're right. It's great to have the opportunity to learn other people, learn other cultures, learn different ideas. But you learn all of that, and then you realize you're still living in the best one. And maybe that just makes me a cocky Canadian, but I'm a cocky Canadian.
Right? But yet
You know what?
I'm thankful for what I have.
We need to be hyping our boys more.
Yeah.
I say this all the time. Like, Canadian needs to be hyping itself more. It's a pretty great place.
Yeah, but let's stick to being kind. We don't need to be peacocking all over. Let the Americans be the Americans.
Yeah, we'll let the Americans do that. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. We'll be the Canadians, but we're truly blessed. It's great that you have this show, and I wish you more success in getting some more individuals.
Yeah, thank you. No, we got Vincent Guzzo on earlier, the Mr. Sunshine from Dragon's Den. He was on earlier today, and
nice.
Sarah Blackwood, who's the lead singer of Walk Off the Earth, is coming on. It's going well. You know what I say to Zach all the time? I'm like, we have the best job ever. We just get to talk to interesting people about what they love. Right?
Well, in Canada, I do love Canada, man.
Yeah,
that's very true. In the politics, there's a lot of folks I should be thanking for mentoring me and teaching me and all that. They all know who they are, but it's a difficult world. But there's and as difficult as we said it was, and how they'll suck the blood out of you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of support.
There's a family there. It's a family, like you said. There's a lot of hate and a lot of love.
Yeah, just like my house. I told you.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.